Detectives froze as the surveillance monitor flickered, the paused frame revealing the missing woman's final known movement inside the casino. Her silhouette halted mid-step, eyes fixed toward something unseen just beyond camera range. An image that carried no violence but radiated unmistakable dread, an irreversible imminence that night for investigators. If you like stories like this, make sure to subscribe and like the video. She had been reported missing 40 hours earlier, but in Las Vegas, a disappearance often arrived with complicated expectations. Young tourists vanished briefly in pursuit of nightlife, winnings, or anonymity, and the city had learned to delay panic. Yet the case of 22-year-old accounting student and weekend blackjack enthusiast, Marissa Clay, resisted any simple explanation. She was not a visitor but a local, living just north of Sahara Avenue in a modest apartment shared with a coworker. She clocked into her bookkeeping job with textbook punctuality and never missed scheduled calls with her mother in Reno. The absence of measurable chaos in her life made the break in pattern unmistakable. The last confirmed sighting placed her inside the Mirage on a humid August Saturday in 2001. Casino security logged her player's card at 10:17 p.m., seated at a low-stakes blackjack table near the sports bar. Receipts verified she withdrew $120 from the cash cage at 11:03 p.m. and then purchased a single cocktail. After that, the timeline lost equilibrium. Friends claimed she intended to leave by midnight, yet her car remained undisturbed in Self Park, and no taxi logs included her name or departure window. The surveillance archives, preserved on magnetic tape and digital backup, became the critical lens through which investigators attempted to reassemble her final movements. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department detectives initiated a missing person protocol by day 3, elevating it to potential foul play by day 7. The desert heat removed any illusion of indefinite survival, while days without financial activity, medical contact, or employment attendance reduced optimistic narratives. Flyers spread down the strip, taped to bus stations, casino lobbies, and convenience stores along Tropicana. Local channels highlighted her photograph, the cautious smile of someone whose world lacked complication or enemies, and yet almost instantly, rumors filled the white spaces left by verified facts. The surveillance team's review of the casino's camera grid revealed Marissa on 3 angles between 11:18 p.m. and 11:41 p.m., moving through bright gaming floors to quieter corridors. She never appeared intoxicated or disoriented, only purposeful. The critical tape, the frame frozen earlier by detectives, captured her at the junction of the hotel tower elevator bank. She stared not toward the elevator itself but slightly past it, toward a blind spot in camera coverage. Casinos in 2001 already maintained substantial digital oversight, but certain architectural angles, upholstery columns, and mirrored sections still concealed movement. That single moment, her fixed gaze, suggested interaction with an unrecorded presence. The initial investigative sweep focused on employees scheduled during her window of disappearance: bartenders, dealers, pit bosses, security personnel. Her credit card and bank records yielded no suspicious companionships, no unexplained transfers, no gambling debts. Family interviews supported the image of a young woman with an introverted social pattern and mathematically precise habits. Nothing in her personal history hinted at voluntary escape. The desert search expanded beyond the city's neon perimeter. Helicopters scanned dry washes and highway turnouts. Volunteers combed open lots near construction zones. The city's transient currents and unpredictable tourism patterns clouded timeline assumptions. Yet the local nature of her life continued to pressure investigators toward internal casino possibilities. Forensic technician reviews of hotel check-in logs, including late-night arrivals, produced a list of names cross-referenced with state IDs, outstanding warrants, and known predatory travel patterns. By week 3, that list narrowed to a single out-of-state guest, 34-year-old military contractor Leonard Price, whose check-in timestamp aligned precisely with the period Marissa vanished. His presence alone did not constitute threat. Vegas hotel rotations included thousands of itinerant professionals. Price maintained a clean record, a security clearance, and consistent employment history. His room charges, rental car receipts, and dining notes revealed no startling irregularities. What complicated his classification was an untagged corridor appearance captured on an auxiliary camera at 11:43 p.m., just 2 minutes after Marissa's final confirmed image. He exited the elevator level wearing a neutral expression, avoiding staff, and pushing a small rolling suitcase not recorded in his earlier arrival. Investigators examined the footage repeatedly. The suitcase's model matched his initial luggage set, but hotel bell staff insisted he checked in with only one bag. The grainy analog record made weight and contents impossible to estimate, yet the timing aligned uncomfortably with Marissa's disappearance. Detectives requested access to his military contracting schedule and travel manifests. His company responded with minimalism, providing only confirmation of a training conference and clearance status. No criminal indicators surfaced. The case cooled by winter. National focus soon shifted under the shadow of September's events, and Las Vegas news cycles reduced coverage. Marissa's family returned to Reno, holding memorial services absent remains or legal closure. The desert offered an expansive silence, and the investigation moved into the archival stage, boxes sealed, tapes logged, interviews transcribed. 2 years later, in 2003, the case returned without warning. An unrelated audit of casino security systems for insurance purposes required digitization of older tapes, including the August 2001 weekend. The technician performing the transfer recognized a small but crucial flaw. The camera directed toward the elevator bank had been misdated by several minutes due to a timing glitch after a power surge earlier that year. When corrected digitally, the revised timeline shifted Marissa's final image to 11:45 p.m., not 11:41. That meant Price's corridor appearance occurred before she reached the elevator, not after. The resequencing reframed suspicion. He could not have intercepted or accompanied her in that window as previously theorized. Detectives reopened the case with updated timestamps and renewed forensic access. A more modern video enhancement system refined her final expression. The dread noted earlier, though subtle, did not indicate recognition of a companion, but rather hesitation at movement emerging from the elevator itself. Someone stepped out, partially obscured by reflective paneling. The individual wore a maintenance badge. Maintenance rosters from that date identified a staff electrician, temporary hire, operating under the name Gary Wilton. The employment file traced to a P.O. box in Henderson and a disconnected phone number. His social security information belonged to an entirely different individual who died in 1993. A background sweep revealed identity fabrication and employment history spanning multiple states with short-term hotel and casino assignments. Detectives obtained a broader warrant and contacted states tied to his alias history. California returned a previous ID photograph matching the maintenance worker on tape. His actual name surfaced: Gerald Niles, 38 at the time, a transient technician with a civil harassment complaint filed in Phoenix, though dismissed before hearing. The digital enhancement finally confirmed it. The partial reflection of the badge and embroidered patch matched the falsified employment profile. With identity clarified, investigators re-examined hotel logs, specifically key card access. Maintenance staff utilized master keys. Niles' access logs revealed two anomalies: unauthorized entries into vacant suites on the same floor as Marissa's last recorded position, one at 10:54 p.m. and another at 11:46. The second entry occurred minutes after her disappearance from visual record. Search warrants executed in 2004 on Niles' storage rental in California uncovered uniforms, master key replicas, and casino employment IDs from multiple states. Among archived items, detectives located an external hard drive containing surveillance screenshots from casinos across Nevada and Arizona, cataloged anonymously. Though none displayed Marissa explicitly, metadata confirmed the Mirage weekend among them, indicating premeditated environmental study. But the defining breakthrough arrived from DNA. A vacuum-sealed evidence envelope in the original case file had preserved a solitary strand of hair recovered from an elevator panel, overlooked initially due to uncertainty of origin. Modern mitochondrial sequencing linked it directly to Niles via a close familial DNA match stored in a distant relative's genealogy profile. Niles, now residenced under a different surname in Oregon, was arrested without incident in 2005. He declined interviews. The prosecution assembled a circumstantial but conclusive case: falsified identity, unauthorized floor access, digital surveillance collection, and DNA correspondence. During trial, experts reconstructed a calculated pattern of targeting solitary female casino patrons in transition spaces unprotected by camera continuity. The jury delivered a guilty verdict for kidnapping resulting in death, despite the absence of recovered remains, supported by Nevada precedent for no-body convictions when forensic and circumstantial evidence forms irrefutable linkage. The verdict did not arrive with outbursts or tears. It settled over the courtroom with the stillness of a city just before dawn, that hour when slot machines quiet their tones, and the neon hum feels less like spectacle and more like echo. Family members of Marissa Clay, positioned behind the prosecution table, accepted the conclusion not as triumph, but as confirmation that the absence they carried for 4 years had a defined source. In kidnapped and presumed deceased cases, judicial language carries an intentional restraint. The court described her death not as seen, not as recovered, but as the only logical outcome supported by recorded movement, identity fraud, access manipulation, and the documented predatory patterns collected in Niles' storage unit. The judge read the sentence with practiced austerity: life without parole. Clark County media moved quickly in the case's wake, reviving archived segments from the summer of 2001. The absence of remains posed a challenge for broadcast framing. True crime coverage often prefers tangible endpoints, recoveries, funerals, memorial sites. Instead, reporters emphasized the subtlety of casino surveillance methods, the global influence of Las Vegas security protocols, and the investigative persistence required to dismantle a false identity woven across multiple states. Interviews with Mirage security personnel, retired by then, revealed the collective guilt felt by an industry engineered to see everything yet occasionally blinded by angles, reflective surfaces, and architectural blind corridors. In the days following sentencing, the defense released a brief statement asserting Niles' continued claim of innocence, and his position that his employment history was irregular but not criminally linked to Clay's disappearance. The statement did not alter public understanding. Jury analysis, DNA confirmation, and the timeline reconstruction left negligible space for alternate narratives. If motive existed beyond opportunistic predation, it remained sealed by Niles' silence. The case became one of the few Nevada no-body convictions upheld without appeal reversal, a precedent studied by state law departments and reviewed in legal journals for its meticulous evidentiary chain. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police closed the Clay file with final procedural language, noting that the investigation could not recover remains but concluded cause within legal certainty. Throughout 2006, new regulations emerged across Strip properties, requiring extended surveillance coverage at elevator junctions, employee-only corridors, and transitional casino-to-hotel thresholds. Maintenance staff credentialing tightened within months, requiring real Social Security verification and third-party employment history audits. The Nevada Gaming Commission applied additional compliance codes for key card access logs, specifically those tied to staff with broad mobility within hotel towers. Such measures did not erase the original breach, but they formed structural responses intended to neutralize replication. The Mirage floor, where the final confirmed image had been captured, underwent redesign by early 2007. The upholstered pillars responsible for partial visual obstruction were replaced with transparent structural supports. The reflective paneling that once concealed a human form exiting an elevator was removed entirely, replaced with matte surfaces that could not distort or hide camera visibility. Architects, casino security heads, and surveillance operations specialists collaborated in a redesigned strategic map of coverage that reduced any remaining opaque angles within guest transition zones. Marissa's former coworkers in accounting organized an annual memorial scholarship through the University of Nevada, supporting students entering forensic auditing programs. The memorial was not publicized in major outlets. It remained a local acknowledgement, one that matched the quiet precision she exercised in her professional life. In Reno, her mother and brother finalized a commemorative garden along a residential slope overlooking the Truckee River. It held no marker of death, only her birth name, the date she entered the world, and a simple inscription indicating a life interrupted but accounted for. The casino archived tapes, once stacked in climate-controlled rooms with miles of magnetic film, transitioned to digitized, encrypted storage. The Clay footage became training material not for public release, but for internal instruction in surveillance risk detection, demonstrating how a single silent frame could hold narrative weight equivalent to hours of recorded movement. The defining image, her stillness, her line of sight toward an unseen emergence, remains preserved in high-resolution digital clarity, retained by law enforcement and select Gaming Commission archives only. Niles, transferred to Ely State Prison due to classification level, maintained an uneventful incarceration profile. No known correspondence, no interviews, no memoir attempts, no cooperation with cold case units tracking his previous employment trail. Forensic review of other casinos where he appeared on payroll under false names did not produce direct victims matching the Clay timeline, though missing person records from Arizona and California were cross-referenced repeatedly without conclusive alignment. The prosecution had framed him not as serial operator, but as opportunistic, methodical, and deeply skilled in spatial anonymity. His employment pattern indicated strategic selection of large hotel complexes with high guest turnover, high noise-to-signal ratio, and layered access permissions. Legal closure in Nevada did not entirely quiet speculation. Some segments of the true crime public theorized alternate endings, though without law enforcement endorsement. Possibilities ranged from accidental encounter to calculated targeting, but such hypotheses lost relevance against the evidentiary architecture. Falsified employment identity, unauthorized room access, surveillance angle exploitation, DNA trace on elevator surface, and the narrowed time window supported by chronological reconstruction. The narrative remained grounded not in imagination, but in time-stamped, cross-referenced fact. By 2008, the Clay case circulated through academic criminology courses. Students studied the timeline, the camera blind spots, the adjusted timestamp error, and the eventual breakthrough provided by digital enhancement. The error correction, just 4 minutes, demonstrated the thin margin between investigative misdirection and clarity. Instructors emphasized the significance of archival review, the necessity of re-examining foundational evidence when technological systems evolve. Without it, the primary suspect might have remained misidentified, the suitcase image focusing scrutiny on a guest who had committed no crime. Slowly, the case left daily conversation. Las Vegas, with its perpetual cycle of construction, implosion, and reinvention, built new towers, new gaming floors, and new surveillance grids. The Mirage preserved internal commemorative notes but did not display them publicly. Security teams rotated, management shifted, and only the compliance changes and tightened hearing protocols remained as lasting structural evidence of that August weekend. Weathered flyers, once taped across convenience store doors in the summer heat, faded into memory. Years later, residents who lived through that media cycle could still recall her face, young, composed, clear-eyed, but the urgency receded. In true crime chronology, resolved cases often fall quiet not in disrespect, but in acknowledgement that the legal system reached its conclusion. Closure, however incomplete in emotional terms, stood. Law enforcement analysts later remarked that the Clay case altered surveillance philosophy on the Strip more profoundly than any technological invention. It demonstrated that cameras alone do not secure a space. Only interpretation, re-evaluation, and continuous forensic curiosity can maintain truth. The silent frame freeze, the initial image that marked the turning point, captured not horror but recognition. A person aware, in real time, that her trajectory had intersected with someone operating beyond recorded sight. Next 1,500 words, right arrow final legal aftermath, quiet decades later, and concluding reflection. The passing of years did not erase the Clay case from institutional memory, even as public awareness receded into the background rhythms of Las Vegas expansion. Within police training seminars, her file became an enduring example of a disappearance solved not through dramatic revelation, but through incremental recalibration of detail, especially the corrected timestamp that transformed a static image into a definitive indicator of sequence. Younger detectives entering the force encountered her story not as tragedy but as procedural blueprint. That a silent hallway, a reflective panel, and a 4-minute discrepancy could represent the entire hinge upon which justice eventually turned. Although the Mirage remodeled its interior, the precise elevator junction where Marissa last appeared remained preserved digitally, copied onto secure law enforcement servers, protected by tiered encryption, and viewed only under instructional clearance. The image remained still, but the layers around it, improved software, digitized archives, new surveillance training, continued to evolve. In the absence of sensational elements often associated with casino area crime, the case endured primarily through its methodical unraveling. The city, often mythologized for spectacle, retained this memory as a study in the limitations of observation and the necessity of forensic patience. Marissa's family continued to maintain the Truckee River Garden, adding seasonal plants but leaving the original inscription unchanged. No annual ceremonies, no press interviews, no attempts at public documentary production emerged. Their approach reflected a quiet alignment with the tone of the case itself, factual, contained, and free of narrative embellishment. Each year, the university scholarship named in her honor recorded recipients who never knew her personally, yet understood the financial support as part of a legacy defined not by disappearance, but by the eventual precision of legal process that validated her memory through structured evidence. Investigators who had retired by the time the conviction was finalized occasionally participated in academic panels on cold case recovery, presenting the Clay investigation alongside others where archival media provided eventual resolution. They described the moment of rediscovery not as cinematic breakthrough, but as administrative necessity. Old footage scheduled for transfer, reviewed for insurance compliance rather than criminal intent, and subsequently revealing a misalignment that restructured the entire timeline. The case reinforced the principle that cold storage does not imply case death. Evidence preserved without expectation can still generate outcome decades later. In Ely State Prison, Niles' conduct remained stable, defined by silence. That absence of confession denied psychological closure but did not undermine evidentiary certainty. Correctional officers reported no disciplinary issues, no agitation, no recorded emotional spikes around anniversaries or parole hearings he would never receive. His existence receded into administrative routine, a name on rotation sheets, a cell assignment, a life defined by restriction rather than narrative. For the justice system, this neutrality represented fulfillment, not retribution articulated but accountability documented, contained, and legally permanent. For Las Vegas Metro, the Clay case marked a shift toward proactive surveillance redesign. Casino environments had always prioritized camera quantity, but this investigation refocused emphasis on continuity rather than mere coverage. The blind angles removed across Strip properties reflected not technological failure but architectural oversight corrected through procedural learning. By the end of the decade, corridor sightlines had standardized across multiple hotels, requiring uninterrupted framing of every transitional zone. The Clay file became the cited origin point for multiple compliance codes drafted between 2006 and 2009, embedded into Gaming Commission inspection matrices. The absence of recovered remains persisted as the case's one unresolved element. But under Nevada statutes and evidentiary precedent, closure did not require physical confirmation of final location. In the years that followed, search teams occasionally re-examined peripheral desert areas flagged during initial missing person operations, though without renewed leads. Each attempt concluded not with renewed urgency, but with procedural acknowledgement that legal determination had already been reached. The desert held many histories without markers, and this particular absence no longer defined the case's legitimacy. True crime media eventually referenced the Clay case in concise segments rather than feature productions, recognizing that the story resisted dramatization. There were no chase sequences, no anonymous letters, no sudden witnesses emerging after years of silence. Instead, the case represented administrative endurance, a casino camera, a timestamp error, a maintenance alias, and the layered verification that transformed suspicion into legally recognized certainty. In that restraint, the case acquired an unusual clarity, one that categorized it as instructional rather than sensational. For the city, the memory endured in indirect ways. Newly built hotels incorporated integrated surveillance architecture during design rather than retrofit. Hearing processes for technical contractors included multi-state identity verification and biometric cross-checks with federal employment systems. The transient workforce that had once enabled Nile's mobility diminished under stricter oversight. Although no city official publicly cited the Clay case when announcing such changes, internal documents identified it as foundational, a procedural caution embedded in regulatory evolution. As decades passed, Las Vegas continued its perpetual reinvention, but certain investigative legacies remained static. The Clay case file, sealed and digitized, stood as a complete record: disappearance, investigation, revision, identification, conviction, and aftermath. No revisions were needed, no new suspects introduced, no appeals contested. In its final form, the narrative carried no unresolved components except the physical location of her remains, a fact acknowledged in the concluding page of the file, with austere administrative language describing recovery as improbable but unnecessary. The garden in Reno remained its quiet counterpart to the digital archive. Visitors rarely knew its origin unless guided by family. Its significance was not symbolic of tragedy, but of confirmation that truth, when pursued methodically, eventually surfaces through accumulated detail. In that space, the Clay case achieved its true conclusion, not its sentencing, not through media acknowledgement, but through the durable recognition that a single vanished individual received full investigative completion. In the end, Las Vegas absorbed the case into its structural memory rather than its cultural mythology. The city known for illusion resolved this story through documentation, timestamps, and calibrated revision rather than spectacle. The final legacy of Marissa Clay rested not in disappearance, but in the systems that evolved because of her, systems designed to ensure that silent corridors no longer offered anonymity to those who sought to exploit unseen intersections between camera ranges.